Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Waldman. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Wednesday, December 21st, 2016, coming to the end of 2016, coming to the end of the school week for the kids. Maybe your kids got out a little bit earlier. I don't know. Good luck to you if they did, and good luck to them not getting bored. But and eyeing those Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa presents, whatever might be hiding, whether under a tree, under a couch, in a closet, or perhaps out in the open. Got a story yesterday. Somebody opened a gift gun, where I believe down in Florida, of course, and accidentally shot themselves, which not unusual for this time of year, although usually people wait until Christmas. I've heard of, families that have traditions of opening up a gift, perhaps one gift, Christmas Eve, because the kids just can't wait, and then you grow up and it's just a tradition, and people still do it because I don't know why. I mean, you stopped eating SpaghettiOs, you can wait until... All right, whatever. Anyway, I don't mean to judge. It's not my practice. But December 20th, that seems a little bit early to be opening gifts. And it's not Hanukkah. Not yet. I don't know when Kwanzaa starts. But I guess we could check that out. I don't think they could be pagans. Why didn't I think of that? It could have been a solstice gift. That's ridiculous. Well, anyway, they gave one, somebody gave the woman in this relationship, I don't know whether they're a married couple or who gave who what. Anyway, all I heard was they gave them the gift of a gun. Give your loved ones, the relatives, the gift of a gun. Except, one thing you should do is not load the gun, which also probably tells you probably bought it used somewhere, maybe. Unless they bought a brand new gun and denied the recipient the fun of unboxing, which is a big thing if you're a millennial, apparently, just to bash millennials just one more time. And anyway, he wrapped the gun loaded, which is insane. I don't know whether he loaded it himself, or I don't even know whether it was a he that gave her the gift. Anyway, she shot herself, and golly, that's an early Christmas present for you. I'm a little flabbergasted that somebody would gift wrap a loaded gun, but then again, 'tis the season. Haha. Well, people will be unwrapping unloaded brand new guns soon enough and then loading them and then shooting themselves with it. We'll get to that story perhaps next week when we start to hear those reports. In the meantime, Daily Co's Radio being live now. Bill in Portland, Maine reminds everyone listening or preparing to listen via Twitter, Kagro X, that's me, David Waldman, says he will not sing during the Trump inauguration, but I might juggle cats. I think that's an appropriately alt-right kind of activity. Remember, if you're thinking of converting to alt-rightism, which is, of course, white supremacy and Nazism, apparently, you gotta find things that are atrocious and universally reviled in order to appropriately qualify, I think, as alt-right. That's just one of the things that they like to do, is to find things that will frighten or dismay the largest number of people. So cat juggling might work for those purposes. I don't know. Apparently this morning, Donald Trump is on a tear, tweeting about how he totally would have done better in the election if he had tried. He knew, of course, that the Electoral College is how you win, and he knew that the Electoral College was going to be the one that would install him in the presidency. So he only went for what he needed, but he now thinks that he could have done much better if he had campaigned a little bit differently. If the popular vote would have determined it, he totally would have gone out and gotten more of those. And I don't really know what's driving it, except that is to say, I have no new theory about what's driving it. The old theories, I think, are perfectly adequate. He's got narcissistic personality disorder, and he's a total wacko, and he's an infant, and an idiot, and that's why he's doing this. I don't know. He's got this enormous ego, and he's just got to feed it. Anyway, I guess I also have to clear something up. Last night, I tweeted around a photo of what I thought was fairly obviously a new model of those weird, I don't know what you would call them, but they're statues of naked Donald Trump that made the rounds during the campaign. And I guess it should be noted, I don't know whether the same people created it, but there was also, in case you're one of those people that needs the balance, there was a naked Hillary Clinton statue out there. It's just nobody cared to talk about it. The Donald Trump one was funnier. Everybody sort of thinks of Donald Trump, I guess, as, As spending more naked time, let's say, out there in the world. I don't know. I'm not sure why it didn't catch on. Certainly the deplorables loved the heck out of knowing that there was a naked Hillary Clinton statue. But not as fervently as we deplorables, from the other side, the other point of view, enjoyed the Donald Trump statue. Anyway, there's a new one, or a new set of them being prepared, and there was somebody spray painting it, using some art airbrush to try and give it the unnatural color of the actual natural ish Donald Trump. But it also gave it, of course, the appearance that it was the real Donald Trump getting himself a full body naked spray tan. And I retweeted it and made a joke about it, actually, a Westworld joke, which was just a throwaway thing. But everybody was so appalled by the picture, and lots of people were saying, "Oh my God, is this real? Is this he's fit? How could he possibly? What does he do?" No, it's not real. Donald Trump. I don't know whether Donald Trump does the full body spray tan or not, but I assume, I don't know, maybe I assume too much. I assume he's not photographing it and then distributing the photographs. Could have been leaked, whatever, but why would he have I don't know. It's not real. It's a statue. I don't mean to alarm anybody, but I think that should have been fairly obvious, but okay. Maybe not. You never know. This guy, you can't tell. The craziness never ends. You can never tell whether he's really going as nuts as you think he is or what. I don't know. The other thing that caught my attention this morning, of course, the post from, I just happened to see this quickly, from Michael Calderon. Michael Calderon, of course, senior media reporter at the Huffington Post. I say, of course, because I'm just reading that now. You may also know him from previous lives in Politico, Yahoo News, and the New York Observer, which I think is Jared Kushner's newspaper. But he's an ex one of those, whatever that means. Anyway, his tweet this morning, Republican congressmen are afraid of Breitbart. And a link to a Politico article. Perhaps we'll take a look at that. But most importantly, this excerpt. Since the election, numerous congressional Republicans have refused to publicly weigh in on any Trump proposal at odds with Republican orthodoxy, from his border wall to his massive infrastructure package. He loves the fact that they just said massive package, of course. The most common reason, stated repeatedly but always privately, they're afraid of being attacked by Breitbart or other big-name Trump supporters. Nobody wants to go first, said Representative Mark Sanford, who really has nothing to lose in all this, who received nasty phone calls, letters, and tweets after he penned an August op-ed in the New York Times calling on Trump to release his tax returns. People are naturally reticent to be the first out of the block for fear of Sean Hannity. I don't know how much fear there is about Sean Hannity. For fear of Breitbart. For fear of local folks. Of course, you got to fear the local folks. But it's a more potent threat than usual because, of course, the I don't know whether he still holds the title, but the editor and the CEO of Breitbart News is a senior advisor to the incoming president, and he can basically call the tune whenever they decide they want something written that will fan the flames against political enemies. He just has to pick up the phone. And I don't know if they've gotten around to naming a press secretary yet, but another of the royalty of the fake news environment, Laura Ingraham, still up apparently for that position, unless they've gone ahead and named somebody. I don't know. Well, Greg Dworkin may know. I'm not certain whether that's in your roundup today, but good morning, Greg. How you doing?
Good morning. It is not, and I don't know.
Okay,
but, I have this great Rick Wilson tweet storm here.
Rick Wilson.
Yeah,
Yes.
the Rick Wilson.
Right. In case you're wondering.
And it says it right there, at the Rick Wilson. That's where you can find him.
The real Donald.
And he cites this Politico story you were talking about and says it's the Rosetta Stone of House GOP behavior. Trump posse browbeats Hill Republicans. Short tweet storm, only 8, but get through it quick.
Gotta be.
We heard this privately from many members of Congress, and strong conservatives, by the way, who know Trump is a lunatic statist. They're intimidated by the constant threats, the screaming nutcases who think any opposition to Umber Mussolini is a sign they've sold out to the D.C. branch of the globalist neocon Sharia Bilderberg Bankster Pizzagate Soros Illuminati Gray Allen conspiracy.
Well, at least it's a robust theory.
Yeah. The Storm Bart Fox, that's what he calls them, S-T-U-R-M-B-A-R-T. The Storm Bart Fox talk radio alternate media ecosystem is both opportunistic and now uses conservatism as a flag of convenience. The legitimate criticisms of an insular, coastal, self-regarding mainstream media are endless, embracing a funhouse mirror version that embraces equally false tendencies. Slanted news is not by any lights conservative, but it does scare the hell out of congressmen and senators when their Facebook feeds are full of threats and screaming. So that's his point. Yes, Republicans can be intimidated. We talked about this yesterday in terms of faithless electors. It was no surprise that Republican faithless electors were going to be rare. They're terrified of their voters. And it's much easier to intimidate Republicans than it is to intimidate Democrats.
I was just going to ask that. I'm not certain whether that's necessarily the case or it's just we just have not ever done that, and I don't know whether it's a good idea to try it. I think maybe not, but I don't know. It does work. They seem to get their way.
We just argue with each other. We don't get intimidated.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's that.
We have 12 years worth of blogging to back that up.
Yeah. That's right. Usually they come and they punch you when you say you really ought to be doing this, or we're angry at you for that.
They invite you to go to an ethics conference because you're a blogger. But what I'm saying is that if you look at our own constituency, herding cats and all of that, no, it doesn't work that you can intimidate them into lining up. What are you going to do? Threaten to beat them up? That's literally, and how do they like to put it? Symbolically, literally, and seriously, what the Trump voters threaten.
Yeah. But don't take them literally. I think that was something yesterday.
Yeah, just take them symbolically.
Yeah. It's all symbolic. They're all afraid symbolically of
that you're going to symbolically get beaten up.
Yeah. I guess so. They're, as you know, they are originalists. They are strict textualists, but don't take them literally.
Yeah, hard to be a strict textualist when you're not really clear what to read and don't believe in reading anyway, because it's all like elite stuff.
Yeah, words matter except when I say them.
Right. Tim Fernholz points out some Gallup polling here. Do you approve or disapprove of the way the following president-elect is handling his presidential transition? Remember, George W. Bush was delayed a month. NBC Wall Street Journal poll didn't have it because in December this time in 2001, George W. Bush wasn't president yet. We're still arguing about Florida.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right? So Donald Trump, compared to Obama, Bush, and Clinton. Bill Clinton in December of 1992 approved of his presidential transition 67-15. George W. Bush, January, not December for those reasons, 65-26. Barack Obama in December of 2008, 75-17. And Donald Trump, 48-48. Historic landslide, Tim Fernholz calls it.
Okay.
So how he's playing isn't all that great with the public, and we know, again, we talked about the NBC Wall Street Journal poll the other day. There are reasons why Trump fights back about all these so-called facts that don't matter, because they do matter, and it matters to the public, and he's very sensitive to the fact that he's a minority, unliked, underwater president-elect, which is historically unusual. He's well aware of that. And that's why he keeps claiming he has a mandate and he won, and it must have been millions of illegal voters who were the reason that Hillary won by 3 million votes and all that sort of stuff. So he's vulnerable to pressure. And the question is who can put that pressure on. Obviously, it's not going to be Republicans because he's going out of his way to try to intimidate them not to. That would just make things worse for him. We know that would make things worse for him. That's why we're cheering them on. But they are intimidatable. And in fact, that's the game that's going on right now.
Yep. Well, one of many games.
Yeah. But, that's part of it. And so that's one of the reasons, because all of that is true, we express such great disappointment when the New York Times fails, and to great praise when the Washington Post succeeds in pointing some of this crap out. So no, it's not everything is equal here by any means. And there's a lot going on. In fact, there's a lot going on about the election itself still getting analyzed, not because it's sour grapes, not because people want to relitigate the primaries, but because there's a lot that went on. Here's an example. David Leonhardt has his piece, I don't know if it was covered in the show, Democrats had a knife and the GOP had a gun. Did you do that one?
We certainly mentioned it.
President Obama, well, it was,
You did.
It's your daily reminder from now on to subscribe to the New York Times, because that way it's not behind a paywall.
Yes.
Hey, you said we should do that. So
right, well, until New Year's. But it's good to give me reminders on the run-up to it.
Right, I mean, you said it just yesterday, so I was hoping you hadn't forgotten.
I have forgotten.
Okay, there you go. President Obama and Governor Pat McCrory of North Carolina don't agree on many policy questions, but they found themselves facing a similar political situation this year, and their very different reactions capture the deep and alarming differences between the two political parties right now. Obama and McCrory essentially had their accomplishments on the ballot. McCrory was running for re-election. Obama wasn't, but his chosen successor was running against a candidate who had personally demeaned him and promised to repeal his agenda, which is one of the remaining stinging things about this election result, and why I will never forgive James Comey and the FBI sucks.
Okay.
As you'd expect, Obama and McCrory each campaigned hard. There, however, the similarities stopped. The differences have played out in three acts. In the first act, Obama was faced with evidence that Russia was trying to help Donald Trump win. Obama erred on the side of nonpartisan caution, opting not to announce the CIA findings on Russia's motives. He was willing to use the presidential bully pulpit to criticize Trump, but not the levers of presidential power to disadvantage him. McCrory went so far using his levers that a federal appeals court unanimously slapped him back. Throughout legislation he had signed to restrict voting access, saying it targeted African Americans with almost surgical precision and discriminatory intent. Still, McCrory and his allies managed to take steps to make voting harder for many Democrats. The mischief didn't keep him from losing narrowly, and in the second act, McCrory initially refused to accept the outcome, invented stories of massive voter fraud, and spent weeks refusing to concede. I have to point out the irony of some friends of mine who I have spoken to, like personally, not online argues, but like friends. Progressive friends who get very annoyed that Obama wasn't more partisan.
Yes.
And didn't fight Republicans tooth and nail by using all the powers at his disposal, including, as you might put it, the power of the gavel.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't have one, but okay.
In various and sundry places. And here's an example, not announcing the CIA findings on Russia's motives. So people on the Democratic side are annoyed that Obama didn't use these levers of power to do more to help his cause, but are phenomenally annoyed at the Democratic National Committee for how many debates they had and using what little power in the least possible outcome affecting way as somehow or other anti-democratic.
Well,
everybody's
have
those two thoughts in your head at the same time.
I don't have either of them in my head at the moment.
I don't either, but I'm trying to understand.
Oh, I don't know. I guess you can put whatever you want in your own head.
I suppose, and nobody says you have to be consistent.
Yeah, it's just you can't put them in mine.
Right. But the title of my pundit roundup today was a little bit of a extension of the rant that I had yesterday on your show. Partisanship rules, like it or not, so play to win.
Yeah.
And I can understand people being annoyed at Obama for not, quote, standing up to Republicans more, end quote. Not all of them are justified. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes in the middle of being president, you can't do that. Sometimes it's a gamble that you get more from the way you're doing it than some other way. And sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't work. And just like losing a presidential election, whenever it doesn't work, you're open to all sorts of criticisms about how my way was better. You should have done it my way. I told you all along. And that, in fact, may not be true at all, but nonetheless, there it is. How do you fight the Iraq War better?
Well, the country's full of people who would have won the election.
Of course. I mean, this is like coaching a football team or deciding that play that didn't go right. And I told you shouldn't have done that. I told you to pass instead of run. I mean, it's just, part and parcel of everything. Not mad about that. But nonetheless, sometimes you have to step back and say, sometimes the coaches actually know their own team and their players better than you do.
Yeah, it sometimes happens. And, I mean...
Sometimes you know who's injured, who's not, who's tired, who's not, who screwed up, who didn't, so on and so forth. They might even know something about their actual profession, but that's a different story altogether.
Obama's an interesting guy and a unique case, and like most people, there's a lot going on under the surface and a lot of currents and undercurrents.
And, including the very fact that he's the first black president, and you can't go around being angry black man all the time and expect that's going to play.
That was a serious issue, particularly in in his first election and the beginning of his
at the end. The
he
fascinating,
stayed black. That's true.
Pieces that claim that actually racism and racial issues, racializing, had more to do with Trump's election than Obama's election are fascinating, and that speaks to why Obama did some of the things he did and why throughout his career he does things the way he does. Nonetheless, the concept there is there are these things that one can do, and in certain cases you choose not to do them, whereas on the Republican side that's simply not true. And so you can look at that and say, okay, well, but then, maybe Democrats should play a little more hardball if they really expect to win. I'm sure you've heard that criticism.
Yes.
But then when you do, look, you're trying to throw the primary to one candidate over the other candidate.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you either use those levers of powers or you don't. Politics is a team sport. You play to win or you don't.
True. That's absolutely true. Of course, different hands on the wheel.
You're not going to like the way people drive. Some people drive better than others. There's no question about that. And some people are better at stroking the, you didn't do it my way. What are you going to do for me now kind of thing. I totally get all of that.
And then, of course, the idea of, I want you to play hardball against Republicans, not against other Democrats or other progressives.
Because why?
I don't know, because that's
me. I mean, just look at the big picture and long term. Are you trying to put the strongest field up there? Or are you simply saying hardball is great when it benefits my candidate?
Either that or if hardball is great when it benefits, I could see maybe walking a middle path and saying it's great when it benefits Democrats. And so we want to settle our differences a little more politely than that and then take out the big guns when we're fighting the other guys. But, I mean, you might as well be reminded that the reality is that this stuff gets the guns are out all the time.
They are. I mean, let's just look at, for example, in a reminder that and this is where I'm going with this, we have this a DNC chair election. This isn't to, again, relitigate primary stuff. We're looking at the DNC chair election, which I believe is going to be like the weekend of February 23rd, whatever that weekend is in 2017. So there's still a couple of months away before that happens. And people are lining up behind their favorite candidate and insisting it's really important that their favorite candidate win. So I'm simply asking the basic question, why is it so important that your favorite candidate wins? What's in it for you? What's the big deal here? Are you talking about a symbolic thing that, you are rejecting the past by electing the future? Or are you talking about the fact that you want to put somebody who's there wielding the levers of power in a way that benefits what you want to do?
Now that's a good way of putting it. That's true. I mean, eventually you want them flipping the switches your way, but in a fair way.
Right,
sure.
And some of the most militant voices about insisting that it has to be this person and not that person are the very same people who complain about the fact that it's not democratic when one thing is favored over another thing. You can't have it both ways is what I'm trying to say.
I will say that you at least have to be aware of the way that it very often is, usually almost always is being played, and be prepared to at least spot it when it's happening.
Well, be aware of it, and again, you have to recognize when it's a feature and when it's a bug. Uh-huh. And that's not always easy. It's not always easy for us. You're the process expert. It's not always clear.
It never feels like a feature, but
But it is a feature. And so, in fact, one of the nice things about listening to this show on a regular basis, which I do.
I wouldn't know.
To you, not me.
Okay.
I mean, I listen to you, not me. Is you learn about the fact that wielding the gavel matters in a whole lot of ways that you wouldn't otherwise understand unless you really look at it closely. And that's part of the reason why it's so important who the DNC chair is. And make no mistakes, folks. If your candidate wins, part of the reason you want your candidate to win is you want them to play the rules in a way that favors what you want to get done. Otherwise, why would you even care? If you don't admit that to yourself and to everybody else and then claim that it's all about the pure way of doing democracy with a small d, except when we turn around and hit the Republicans on the head with a club, that's crazy.
Hmm. Well, I guess it's all justified usually by the belief that the true majority of the world, the country, the state, the county, whatever election you're contesting, is really with you. After all, and or they don't realize it yet. That's true. Maybe they just don't realize it yet. And if we would open up the process, then we would hear more from them. The reason that they don't show up is that they feel excluded from the process. There's always something to that, but you got to win to prove it. There's always that.
Right. And so, if you really want to prove it, then have more people vote. And the way to have more people vote is to have a primary and not a caucus. And it's going to cost you money. Suck it up. Sometimes you get what you pay for. And what do you pay for if you want to do it on the cheap and you do caucuses? You get faithless electors.
I guess you can.
Right? And this is not a Bernie Hillary thing. A lot of the faithless electors were those Hamilton people who, in good faith, wanted to push Republicans in a ill thought and poorly executed attempt to convince Republicans to vote for somebody like Colin Powell or John Kasich or some other moderate Republican, acknowledging that the Republicans won the election, but not wanting Trump. And so if you do your as you see it, duty of the founders, you get to vote for somebody from the party that won, but not the guy that won. And somehow or other, that was magically going to change everything. Of course, it didn't. It looked awful in its execution because it failed so badly. And the only thing it did is lead to more stories of Dems in disarray, which is the last thing in the world you need right now.
Well, that's all it led to, though.
Doorbell.
Okay. Well, I snuck up on you. I'm talking to you on my phone, and it was me. I rang the doorbell. I saw a lot of stories that reported it that way, and I did see some interesting references to pieces, the think pieces about the Electoral College, which I don't know. I have no real enthusiasm.
It's not
for
changing,
it.
So I can't spend a whole lot of intellectual energy looking at those things. The funny part was, again, step back and look at the bigger picture, and you can correct me because you've been following this even closer than I have. But my understanding is the people who wanted to switch their vote from Clinton to Bernie got kicked out and actually weren't allowed to in various places. Whereas the people who wanted to do the Hillary to Colin Powell or Hillary to some other person had a little bit more luck in doing that. I don't think that's an accident.
I'm not. Well, I guess you'd have to pore over the rules in the various states. It may be that the desire to cast a vote for Colin Powell was viewed somehow. It could be that it was just simply viewed differently than the desire to cast a vote for Bernie Sanders, which I think is legitimate. But it also could be that, in states that allow that kind of discretion, they tended to be thinking. I mean, it may just be that the electors in those states also were thinking with a different strategy because of the rules and what they allowed. Whereas in some states where the rules are tighter, we might have sent electors that they either never bothered to read them or didn't care what the rules said or what. It just, I guess you tend to
you can't play the game
people.
if you don't know the rules. There's no question about it.
You can. It doesn't work.
You're going to lose.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're not even allowed to play. You get kicked out and somebody puts a substitute in for you. But at other times, if you don't know the rules, you're just going to lose.
Yeah.
And again, it gets back to this whole bigger piece here that if it's not a team sport and if it's not thought out in advance and if you're not all playing together, you're really not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
There's this. Okay, I'm going to go out on this weird tangent. Bear with me.
All right. We do that.
There's a medical condition called primary ciliary dyskinesia. What it means is the tiny microscopic hairs that line your respiratory tract don't always work right. And when they don't beat the way they're supposed to in a wave, they don't move mucus and phlegm out of your airway the way it's supposed to.
Ah, okay. I must have that.
Okay. So lots of people get temporary situations, and so they get cold after cold because they just can't seem to clear stuff. But some people are born with not having all the right parts, and so they never are able to clear stuff the way they're supposed to. And in explaining this to families, I tell them that you have to imagine an old Roman galley, one of these slave ships.
Okay.
Where the guy's beating on the drum like in the movies,
right.
And you're chained to your oar.
Yes.
You can picture that?
I can. Not inside of a lung.
So what happens is when the drum beater beats the drum and everybody to the same beat is rowing their oar, the ship moves.
Yes.
And then there's times when you don't have any oars.
Oh, well.
That's what happens when you're born without the parts.
Yeah, okay.
So the ship won't move.
Parts.
It just sits there, dead in the water.
Right.
Doesn't do anything.
Bad.
But then there's other times, same analogy here. So now you have the Roman galley, and all of a sudden the drum beater is fired, goes on strike, or has a heart attack. You choose. Whatever. He's not beating the drum anymore.
Or maybe he just says, do it your own way. I mean,
do everybody,
your own way.
Let's have a caucus.
Let's be free, man.
Let's be free. Let's democracy rules. So everybody decides that they're going to row that oar to their own beat.
Right. Don't judge.
Now, this is a boat that spins in the water. Okay? Nice. It doesn't go forward. It doesn't go backward, but it does move. And on occasion, it might get to the right place and you think you're doing a good job. Okay? And so that's a acquired, a defect there that can be fixed.
Yes.
As opposed to the one where it can't be fixed because you don't have any oars. As opposed to the ship that works because, not that slavery's great, and not that you want to be that guy chained to the oar, but at least, when people do their job, it goes ahead in the water.
Oh, so the trains are on time, eh, Greg?
Yeah, you got it. So the point is that when you're looking at a political party and how it's supposed to function, there are times that you don't like it. But, you got to do it this way or you are not going to move ahead.
Yes.
It's just the way it works.
True.
You can't have complete anarchy and say, listen, everybody gets to do their own thing, man. It doesn't work.
Not if you're trying to row a Roman slave ship, which we're not.
Not if you're trying to win. And for whatever reason, and it probably has a lot to do with who we are, Republicans fully understand this to the point where they are perfectly acceptable to themselves. They find it perfectly acceptable to just vote.
Yeah.
Just do it. Just do it. And we don't.
That's true. Well, there's always a few on the
I understand and I accept that I can't stand this guy and voted for him anyway because the alternative is you guys win. And we are not going to have any of that.
Right.
They do that. They did that in 2016.
They do that all the time.
They do it all the time. We do not do it all the time.
Right.
And a lot of times we lose.
Well, that's true too. But they don't have anything to do with one another.
Well, I think they do. And so, that's my rant for today. Thank you very much. 2-day rant. I'll stop talking about this. But I think it's an important topic, and I think that people just don't fully understand the consequences of having it their own way when everybody else is trying to do it some other way.
Well, now that we have the example of Roman slave mucus, I don't see how you can miss it.
I mean, listen, nobody forgets that.
It's true. You're unlikely
right?
to
You'll
be
remember
able to
that
put
for
that
a
aside.
long, long time. I want to have this discussion with you at lunch today.
Leave the mucus out of it.
Well, why? You'll remember it forever.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess so. Okay. Ew.
Yeah, there you go.
Is this why I can't clear my throat, or is this something else?
Maybe.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of things that look alike that aren't exactly the same thing, but they sort of functionally are.
Oh.
I'm thinking of my in-laws, for example.
Oh.
Well, one of them doesn't listen and the other one can't hear, but functionally it looks the same.
I guess that's true. Okay. Well, at least they're on the same page.
Yeah, pretty much. But it looks the same, but it's not really the same.
They look like they're working together on the same page, but they're not. So.
Right. So it's when you're trying to understand what actually happened, like this election. Right. Don't be fooled by the superficial. Those are completely different issues and need completely different approaches to fix.
So it always pays to look deeper, right? They're unified.
It does. And so
it's not helping.
Again, we're still in the phase. Who was it? Benji Sarlin said that finally, I think after the elector vote, we can move away from bargaining and depression and start getting into the acceptance part. I don't know that we'll ever get to acceptance, but
it's supposed to.
There's still a tremendous amount of, you see, Hillary lost because I told you this thing back in August.
No doubt.
That I was right about, and fie on you because you haven't acknowledged and accepted it and apologized for not agreeing with me back in August. We still have a tremendous amount of that going on. Complete waste of time in my point of view, but it's normal, it's human. You have to do that, but it's not looking below the surface and it's not really doing analysis. And so I think that it's something that we should do is focus a little bit more on that. That's why I was looking at that Democrats have a knife and GOP had a gun article. Here's another one. And this is from Dan Hopkins, political scientist who I have often cited during the primary and election run-up. And this appeared December 20th in 538. And I just love the title. Voters really did switch to Trump at the last minute.
Yeah, well.
Donald Trump's somewhat surprising win has forced many political analysts to wonder, were we wrong all along in thinking Hillary Clinton had the upper hand, or was late-breaking movement to Trump part of the reason why polling averages missed his upset electoral college victory? There's certainly evidence that polls underestimated Trump's support in crucial Midwest states, but the latest wave of the Institute for the Study of Citizens and Politics panel survey that my University of Pennsylvania colleague, Diana Moots, and I have been overseeing is now complete and provides new evidence that voters did shift to Trump in the final weeks of the campaign, too. Panel surveys are different, of course, because you get to go back and ask the same people over and over and over. But they found consequential changes in what happened in change in candidate support pre- and post-election 2016.
All right.
And they found that a lot of people, previously undecided or third-party backers, moved to Trump, not Clinton. As to what moved those Americans in the final weeks of the campaign, the panel had little to say, they point out. The timing of James Comey's letter to Congress, released on Friday, October 28th, makes it one potential explanation. And this is where academics are careful, and partisans like me say, yeah,
that was it.
When making sense of campaigns, people often search for overarching narratives, and Comey's letter provides a ready-made story. That's what I was doing in this overarching narrative thing, giving an example of Clinton lost because I told you I didn't like her. Right?
Right.
And Comey's letter provides a ready-made story. No less a political observer than Bill Clinton recently explained his wife's loss by pointing to Comey's letter. And I'll interrupt here and say it isn't just Bill Clinton. It's also the Trump campaign who was on record as saying that. And here's a piece in the Huffington Post from today. Mitch McConnell, I didn't think President Trump had a chance of winning. He didn't expect Republicans would hold the Senate either. Both political observers and data from panels like this suggest this late-breaking stuff was a huge part of this election. Now, he goes on and points out in his academic Let's Cover All the Bases, still we shouldn't discount the possibility that voters might have gravitated to Trump anyhow. Research has long suggested that over the course of a campaign, partisans come home to their party's candidate. Again, emphasizing my partisan rant there. Between mid-October and our post-election wave, Trump picked up almost 4 percentage points from people who had backed Romney 4 years before. between mid-October and post-election. Mid-October to post-election, 4 points. That's a lot.
That is.
Suggesting that Republican identifiers were doing just that. Trump's media coverage in the final 2 weeks was markedly more positive than it had been during the prior weeks. And I add, hence, that's one of the reasons we're so annoyed with media. And it's possible that shifting coverage, because Trump is the same person he's always been, why all of a sudden is it more positive? And it's possible that shifting coverage was just the opening some Republicans and Republican-leaning voters needed to get behind Trump. And again, I would add that was part of the campaign strategy from the Clintons, is to get those Republican-leaning voters to at least neutralize them. When the college-educated women and suburban women, for example, they did, but not in the numbers that they needed, in the places they needed. And I attribute that to Comey, and this data doesn't disabuse me of that opinion. In key respects, the 2016 election represented a decisive break with recent historical patterns, but in an election of surprises, Trump's victory might have come from small electoral shifts in the campaign's final weeks that were surprisingly unsurprising. Of course they weren't surprising. Everybody who saw the Comey letter said, oh, crap, this is terrible and it's going to have a big effect. And you know what? It did.
Well, that's true. So people claim. And I will point out, 538 has been, what shall we say, has been vigilant, the most vigilant of all of the data pundits in demonstrating just exactly how this happened and they weren't wrong. This is a very important thread for them. They're not wrong. It was all about late breaking, late deciding, undecided voters, and interestingly, third-party voters who the break at the last minute among third-party voters for whichever of the two major parties wasn't down in that news cycle is pretty telling too. Just the idea of third-party voters at the last minute always apparently say, oh, yeah, these third parties can't win. What am I doing? All right, which one of these two idiots do I want? Well, okay. That's I find to be a weird thing, but I don't even know how you get to be a... How did they even determine if you are a third-party voter? That seemed like a weird inclusion.
Well, they ask you what you were going to vote for in September, and then in October, and then in November. And so if you said all along, I'm voting for Jill Stein or the other guy.
Yeah, that's nonsense. They should ask you what
and then all of a sudden you vote for Trump, then it was like you were a third-party voter who switched at the last minute.
That's garbage. They should have something more like the likely voter screens that they work so hard on. Every year, the idea of, if you say now that you're gonna vote for a third party and then we observe, I think probably if you look back at almost any presidential election, I'd love to see if there's data for that. How many people who said all along they were third party voters when it came election day said, that's stupid, I'm not a third party voter. Why did I say that?
Well, again, the difference between the general surveys and the panels is you're following specific people so you can pin them down.
Okay. Well,
which is really difficult to do in a general survey based on. I remember I said I thought I was going to do this, because they lie about who they actually voted for in the last election.
Right.
But these are actual people that you can trace down.
Okay. Well, let's start doing it.
Yeah. So interesting there. By the way, one good piece of news every once in a while. We should give you some good news.
Oh, yeah?
President Obama bans oil drilling in large areas of the Atlantic and Arctic Oceans. That's a story out today in the Washington Post.
Yes.
And because this is coordinated with similar steps with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to undo.
I guess so. You can't. Well, it's they're closer to the Arctic too, so they can keep an eye on it.
It's basically a joint action with Canada.
Yeah, well, that's not a bad idea. You can still sneak in from the other direction through Russia. So if you are
try
say, the CEO
lawsuits to follow, and so you can fight it, but it's not going to be that easy. So it just that is a good piece of news.
If you're a Trump guy, sneak in from the other side. The Secretary of State is from Exxon.
Right. Oh, and by the way, because I'm going to throw this in just for the links, when Scott Anderson rounds up the show, at least the link will be there.
Yes.
This is a piece from the National Conference of State Legislatures looking at each state and what states pay for their primaries and election costs.
Oh.
and always interesting in terms of, well, why does one state do it this way and why does another state do it that way? And this actually has, state by state, a list of what states pay for in elections. Like Alaska, state pays for all expenses for federal or state elections. Alaska and Delaware are the only two states that do that.
Huh.
Who knew?
Interesting.
Right? The state pays for all expenses if only state candidates or issues are on the ballot. If other local issues are also on the ballot, state pays a portion. That's Alabama, Colorado, Hawaii, and Louisiana. This is just to give you an idea of how different states do it. States bear a portion of the cost, Kentucky and Rhode Island. State pays for statewide special elections, statewide elections that don't coincide with regular elections when there's only a state candidate or question on the ballot. If local issues are on the ballot, state only pays a portion. A lot of states are in there. Long, long, long list. And then we have the state pays for statewide primary and presidential primaries. Arkansas, South Carolina, Texas. State pays for presidential primary only. Arizona, Idaho, Kansas, Michigan, Missouri, Tennessee, Virginia. That's why I'm including in the list here. And Washington. And so also who pays for voting equipment. How states work with local elections. Really kind of interesting if you want to get in the weeds about how states do things. So I got this from the Green Papers, of course, a wonderful resource for all of us election nerds. But this is the National Conference of State Legislatures that maintains a database about stuff and how it's done so that states can steal from each other and not have to reinvent the wheel all the time.
Yes, that's the stealing we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Not Christmas trees.
But the bottom line is caucuses are cheaper, and so if it's a caucus and not a primary, sometimes it's not the state that has to pay for it.
Well, that is interesting, and it probably explains.
I think we had that lecture from Irreverent Testimony and how it works in Colorado.
Right. Well, it pays to know how it works everywhere, and by the way, we're going to have to reclaim some state legislatures if we want to do this thing. This democracy.
Duh. And how do you do that?
I don't know.
You got to be partisan and be a team player and say, you know what, some of the people in the state legislature may not be totally what I wanted, but you got to have a majority, and so there's going to be some blue dogs. Suck it up and accept it.
Yes. Well,
particularly in states where that's all you have.
Right. Well, that's true. Then you're stuck. But yeah, you got to manage those expectations at least.
Right. So thank you for making this an entire themed rant as opposed to a random rant.
Okay.
This is Greg Dworkin speaking with my friend David Waldman, Kagro in the morning. And I have to say, I am so glad you're here because I would hate to be doing this by myself. It's a whole lot more fun talking with you.
Yes. Well,
than it is just yelling at the mirror.
The 2-hour shows on your own are some tough going. It's nice to have another voice there.
Do not try this at home unless you're really interested in trying this at home, in which case, go right ahead.
Unless you want to, don't do this.
Unless you want to, don't do it. Take care, and I will talk to you tomorrow.
Okay, thanks very much, Greg. I'll catch up tomorrow. I got a doctor story that so you can listen along on your way to work, I guess, or listen later to this one, Greg. It's a doctor story that happened to jump across the screen for me just a few minutes ago. The root of it is a raw story piece. I don't know what brought this up, but probably reading the piece will tell me. But you remember Trump's crazy ass doctor? Not his ass doctor. He may have an ass doctor, but the crazy ass doctor, the one, what's his name? Harold Bornstein, whose picture circulated on Twitter so many times. Every time he opened his mouth to the media, I guess. The one who issued the goofy typo-ridden letter that said that Trump's health was astonishingly excellent and that he would be, if elected, the healthiest individual ever elected to the presidency. You remember the guy. So Raw Story has a new piece, and I saw it being tweeted about. That is, it was the subject of the tweet, but I also see it being tweeted about, like all over the place. Let me just dive right into this one here. Who wrote this? Is there Brad Reed is the writer on this one. Again, Raw Story. Trump's the headline's cracking me up. Trump's doctor now says it's no big deal if his health is bad. That's why we have a vice president. That's pretty remarkable on a number of levels. Let's see what the body of the piece has to say. Who cares? The body of the piece is going to die before I'm done. But don't worry about it. We have another article somewhere else. That's a really good way of dealing with it. Why study medicine at all? You know, somebody comes in and says, Doc, you got to help me. I can't breathe. Meh. That's why we have other humans. The species will survive. What are you worried about? Oh, well, certain doctors might say that. PhDs, I mean, you know, if they're anthropologists, you know, Doc, you got to help me. You don't understand. I'm not a medical doctor. Okay. Dr. Harold Bornstein, who is a medical doctor, I think, drew a lot of criticism when he wrote a typo-riddled medical evaluation, and that should be in scare quotes, of then-candidate Donald Trump, and that should have been in scare quotes, last year that declared Trump to be in, quote, astonishingly excellent health. It's astonishingly excellent in that it's excellent that I didn't bother to examine him, and rather astonishing, and yet I'm writing this letter. I don't know. Now the Hill reports, I guess we'll have to turn there for how did this come up. But I'm thankful for Raw's story and their pictures for grabbing my attention before the Hill did. Good job there. The Hill reports that Bornstein has only just realized that Trump has been elected. Trump will be the oldest person ever to take the office of the presidency, but he says it's not a big deal because Vice President-elect Mike Pence can quickly take on the job if Trump happens to keel over. I don't think he said keel over, but that's what it says here. If something happens to him, then it happens to him, Bornstein said in an interview with Stat News. Now that's capitalized, S-T-A-T, and I don't know whether that's like stat, like the hospital term, and that's who's doing, or what. I don't know. Is it linked here? It's not. Maybe the Hill has a link to that. But look at that. Imagine that is your doctor. If something happens to you, it happens to you. What do I know? Doc, you got to help me. Something's wrong. Yeah, you know, if you say so. I believe in democracy, and, you know, your opinion is as good as mine, and whatever, man. Well, what do you want me to do about my health? What if something happens to me? If something happens, it happens. Greg is listening. He says, yeah, that's the Boston Globe vertical on health, Stat News. Okay. All right. And let's see. So that's it. If something happens to him, it happens to him. Bornstein said in an interview with Stat News. It's like all the rest of us, no? That's why we have a vice president and a speaker of the House and a whole line of people. They can just keep dying. This is his doctor. So somebody asked the other day, was it Greg? Did you bring this one up? That asking, can Trump take his own wacko doctor with him to be his personal physician when he's president? I don't know if there's a question of that, but again, I don't know. Maybe Trump actually appreciates this approach, or at some point he's going to say, "That's my doctor? Holy crap! What's wrong with me?" I don't know what's wrong with me, and I'll never know because he doesn't know either. What a joke. Oh my God, that's your doctor. Can you imagine your doctor discussing you that way? That's why we have a whole bunch of people, they have a whole line of people. They can just keep dying. They're all in astonishingly excellent health. I don't understand what's happening. Bornstein also pointed out that President Ronald Reagan suffered from pre-senile dementia during his time in office. Not a whole lot of doctors willing to say that, I don't think. But he said that it didn't matter because no one ever brought it up. Oh my God, this guy is hilarious. Well, he's very funny. He's got another career. And it doesn't matter. No one ever brought it up. That's so okay. I mean, seriously, did they share that one with you, or did Nancy just cover it up? He asked Stat News rhetorically. Oh, my head. I'm dying. But I don't know why. Bornstein this past summer admitted that his original medical evaluation of Trump, in which he stated that if elected, Mr. Trump will be the healthiest individual ever elected to the presidency, was scrawled down in just 5 minutes. Wow. Well, he admitted that. And now, of course, he's admitting, I don't know what the state of his health is. And also, who cares? That no wonder he got that. It's astonishingly excellent. Sure. And if it isn't, I stake my reputation as a doctor on it. He should have just said, his health, it is what it is. What do you care? It's never going to be brought up unless it is. In which case, then it is. And what? Oh, just trying to catch my breath. Go, Cilia. Get that mucus out so I can get a breath. Wow. Wonder what the Hills report on this says. Holy mackerel. Anyway, so I saw it tweeted, and it was tweeted by Tina Issa. How do we say? We decide how to pronounce it for the congressman. Is it the same one? Does she purposely pronounce it different? You can find her on Twitter, spelled like it sounds, Tina, Tina, Issa, whatever, Issa, all one word. That's the way it works on Twitter. And she just grabbed the Trump or the Raw Story tweet with the goofy picture of the doctor. Trump's doctor now says it's no big deal if his health is bad. That's why we have a vice president. And she just tweets, "Welcome to the United States of the insane asylum." And, man, and then follows up, by the way, with, just the correct observation. Seriously, who would go to a doctor who says, who cares if your health is bad? Honestly, I don't know. That wouldn't be my choice. I wouldn't go to that doctor. What does the Hill have to say about this? This is how addicted I am to the Hill. I'm curious what a more mainstream-ish, certainly more centrist publication than Raw Story would have to say about something like this. Trump's doctor on health, it says in the headline. If something happens to him, then it happens to him. Paulina Ferozi writing this one. And I like the picture they've chosen of Trump giving a highly energetic fist pump. It's his, sort of kind of raised his right fist to about chin level. And he's giving a half smile because he's low energy. Donald Trump's personal doctor said he's not worried about the president-elect's health once he takes office, because who gives a crap? Let him drop dead. Dr. Harold Bornstein, who has treated Trump since 1980, and isn't he a gastroenterologist? Was that how I remember it from the... So since 1980... and what, he's 70 now. In 1980, that means, oh gosh, I've lost track. So in 2000, he would have been 16, 70, 60, 54, and then 20 off of that, 34. So since he was 34, he's going to a gastroenterologist. All right. Whatever. Harold Bornstein has treated Trump since 1980, and that's all he has to say about him. Astonishingly excellent health. I guess. I mean, if something happens to him, it happens to him. You'd think he'd have more to say. Although now that we see how he treats him, I guess, and what his thoughts are generally on health status, I guess, what a gig, right? If people come in, I want to have a physical. Man, you're not dead yet. So, go for it. Wow. So, the quotes are the same, obviously. Here's another note. Prior to Trump, Ronald Reagan was the oldest elected president. He took office in 1981 at the age of 69. Right. Then more about the pre-senile situation. Bornstein previously had said that Trump would be the healthiest person ever elected. If elected, Mr. Trump, I can state unequivocally, will be the healthiest individual ever elected to the presidency. Bornstein said in a statement released last December by Trump's presidential campaign, he told Stat News that the president-elect isn't, quote, an old man the way my grandfather was an old man, though he added that Clinton is an old lady. This is some doctor. Bornstein also noted that he didn't know if he'd continue to treat the president-elect once he takes office, and that's just because he might drop dead. Wow. What a doctor. What a world. What the hell is going on here? I don't. Goodness. The rest of the morning, I think, aside from the most important part in which we speak with Joan McCarter, and I have a feeling she's going to want to discuss this. I have to get on the record that a large story, a big thing, getting a lot of coverage today. I don't know if you've noticed, is the report that the FBI's the warrant that they got to pursue that last garbage story, that last garbage round of emails from Hillary Clinton and Hillary Clinton related computers, turns out, first of all, we learned this a couple days ago and never mentioned on the show, was never actually delivered to the targets of those searches, which is pretty remarkable in itself. Now it's being reported in many places, including Newsweek, but also I see now there's a piece from Huffington Post out there as well. Newsweek, though, has this headline: "Lawyer appalled, sees no probable cause for Clinton FBI search warrant." Not only was it never delivered, it turns out it probably never should have been granted in the first place. And yet, whatever, election for president. La la la. We'll just go ahead and do that. Remember when, back in the old days, when the newspaper of record had caught the incumbent Republican president in warrantless domestic surveillance, but it decided not to tell anybody until after the election, lest they accidentally influence the national election? Those days are gone. Anyway, here's what Newsweek has to say. Josh Saul reporting on this one. Maybe something that Armando wants to comment on, maybe shortly, briefly today, if possible. Otherwise, possibly tomorrow, but maybe after the break as this story continues to boil over. The search warrant that gave FBI agents access to the cache of Hillary Clinton emails just 9 days before the recent presidential election was unsealed Tuesday. It shows that FBI agents obtained the warrant by telling a federal judge they believed the emails contained classified information that broke the law. There is probable cause to believe that the subject laptop contains evidence, contraband, fruits, and or other items illegally possessed in violation of federal law, reads the signed affidavit of an FBI agent, filed October 30th in support of the search warrant for the silver Dell laptop belonging to Anthony Weiner, the former congressman and estranged husband of top Clinton aide Huma Abedin. There is also probable cause, it said, to believe that the correspondence between them located on the subject laptop contains classified information which was produced by and is owned by the U.S. government, reads the heavily redacted affidavit for the warrant. A week later, and just 2 days before the election, FBI Director James Comey announced there was nothing in the new emails to merit changing his recommendation that Clinton not face criminal charges over her handling of classified information while she was Secretary of State. Manhattan Federal Court Judge Kevin Castell ordered on Monday that the warrant be unsealed Tuesday at noon in response to a lawsuit filed by Los Angeles lawyer E. Randall Schoenberg, best known for recovering Jewish-owned art looted by the Nazis. Now, this is a new role for you. Schoenberg has argued that Comey's announcement cost Clinton the election and questioned whether the FBI director had a political motivation when he announced 11 days before the election that a review of the emails was necessary. In a statement Tuesday afternoon, Schoenberg said the search warrant showed no probable cause that would justify Comey notifying Congress, adding that he was appalled by the lack of cause presented in the affidavit. I see nothing at all in the search warrant application that would give rise to probable cause. Nothing that would make anyone suspect that there was anything on the laptop beyond what the FBI had already searched and determined not to be evidence of a crime. Nothing to suggest that there would be anything other than routine correspondence between Secretary Clinton and her longtime aide, Huma Abedin, Schoenberg said in a statement. The search warrant and its release have a long and controversial history. The FBI started an investigation last year into a private email server Clinton used while she was Secretary of State. You know all about that. Then announced in July that no one would face criminal charges, and it had completed its investigation. However, when an unrelated probe into whether Weiner had exchanged sexually explicit messages with an underage girl turned up emails between Clinton and Abedin on his computer in late October, Comey announced a review of those emails and the FBI obtained a search warrant to examine them. Just 2 days before Clinton was beaten by Donald Trump, sorta, Comey said the emails on Weiner's computer did not warrant new action against her. Since the election, Clinton has blamed her loss to Trump in part on Comey's late October announcement. Schoenberg also believes Comey's 11th hour announcement cost Clinton the election, and he hired lawyers to file a lawsuit later this month in an attempt to unseal that search warrant and related affidavits. There's a possibility that somebody gave them false information because they wanted to reopen the investigation, Schoenberg told Newsweek last week, comparing that possibility to someone falsely telling police there were drugs in a house to prompt a police raid that terrorized the house's occupants. In other words, Hillary Clinton's campaign got swatted at the last minute by a Comet Pizza-style fake news raid is a possibility, right? It may be that it was concocted, or it may be just that dupes and idiots in the FBI were willing to believe this stuff and felt like they had to act quickly in order to remain relevant, but it's beginning to sound more and more like there were people who just said, I need to hamstring this campaign, and if what it takes is signing an affidavit that says there's horrible, horrible evidence being covered up here and we've got to get it now. And sure, it may turn out to be a bust, but who cares because the damage will have been done. And at worst, I lose my job in the FBI and President Trump hires me in his secret police. I guess that's where everybody gets to go. Conservative activists on Tuesday noted the search warrant called the probe a criminal investigation, which contradicted past Clinton assertions that the probe was just a security inquiry and energized those who want the investigation into Clinton's email server to continue. Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch, remember he was in the news yesterday, weren't we quoting him on emoluments just yesterday? A conservative public interest group focused on government corruption. It's not a public interest group, it's garbage. Tweeted, Abedin search warrant reconfirms criminal nature of Hillary Clinton's email system. No. Trump administration must look into this. And then, of course, there's a couple other pieces following up on it, adding more garbage from Newsweek. I don't know about this story. Okay. Well, I find it interesting. And it's hardball, man. There's nothing you can do with it. The events have already passed. You can't undo the election, and you're stuck with it. Fake news strikes again in ways that you didn't even know that it was going to strike. Okay, let's see. What other items should I bring up here in an effort to update you on a wide variety of items and to give us more to talk about with Joan when she visits? Let's see. Also, much discussed today, the latest scheme, and this is, I think, a rich vein, invented by, but then denied by the Trump boys, Don Jr. and Eric. As you know, those guys are jerks. And in a different way, I think, than their dad. But here's the story, and this one, I think, has got a dual byline, Matea Gold, and I think David Farenthold was involved in this one too, but as I haven't gotten around to the subscription part of the show housekeeping yet, I'm reading it in pocket view, so I can't see the whole thing, but the text is there. Offer of access to Trump and family at fundraiser is pulled back, but ties remain. That's the headline. The backstory of this, of course, is that I think the crack reporters, and by that I mean reporters on crack from TMZ, no, really, the TMZ, the gossip guys, they do sometimes come up with some amazing political scoops. Anyway, TMZ, I guess, got a hold of, what is this thing? An email? An invitation. Well, I'll read you the story. The initial invitation from Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump dangled a rare opportunity for donors willing to pony up $500,000 and more. A private reception with the new president the day after his inauguration and a hunting or fishing excursion with one of the brothers. Opening Day, it's the Opening Day Foundation is the name of this thing. Opening Day is your opportunity to play a significant role of some kind. That's interesting the way they hang that out there. As our family commemorates the inauguration of our Father, who art in heaven, friend and President Donald J. Trump, read the draft obtained by TMZ. And we might as well look at the TMZ report on this too, because you never know. They love to illustrate their stories with interesting photos at TMZ, usually more interesting than those at the Washington Post. So the deal is, what a horrible picture they found of Eric Trump. Unbelievable. But that's what he really looks like. Anyway, the basics of the story here is that if you pay $1 million, you can go hunting or fishing with the Trump sons. And we know that's a valuable thing to do because the story we heard the other day about how, Ryan Zinke, congressman from Montana, ended up in the Secretary of Interior spot was that, and it was a very sneaky thing, and very interesting to hear it told this way, that supporters of Senator John Tester, who were worried that Zinke might challenge him for his Senate seat in the next election, went hunting with one of the Trump boys and suggested, who would be an awesome Secretary of the Interior or Secretary of anything? Ryan Zinke. He's a big shot, up-and-comer, blah, 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 SEAL, this is Montana, yada, yada. And because, I guess, he was the last person to talk to a Trump about an appointment like that, it got stovepiped right up to Dad, and boom, Zinke, I'm sure there's more to it than that, ends up in the cabinet, Tester fist pumps, but all because somebody went hunting with one of the Trump boys. So it's a serious thing to get one of them or both of them to go hunting with you. It's valuable. You can buy a cabinet seat for yourself or someone you know or love this holiday season. And of course, it also implicates our big discussion of the emoluments clause, etc. Basically, offering up, you want us to be the one who whispers in our dad's ear just before he makes a major decision of some kind. $1 million will do the trick. But it's more than just giving them $1 million. What's really creative about what they're doing here, in my view, is, mind you, these guys don't work. Really, sure, they work in in Dad's business, and Dad says, "Take care of this thing at this hotel or whatever." And like the vineyard that he bought, Dad, I like wine. I want to have a winery. Yeah, here you go, have a winery. Otherwise, I don't know what they do. But now, of course, it's said that they're going to be handed the quote unquote global business empire, so that they can run it as a quote-unquote blind trust, so that there are no quote-unquote conflicts of interest for their dad. Ivanka has been considerably more involved in that aspect of the business, I think. That's the image that they're portraying. But she appears to be interested in hanging around D.C. and having a policy role, plus filling the role of First Lady as well. And, of course, her husband, Jared, a role as an advisor of some sort to President Trump. But the boys are supposed to take over the running of everything else. Not that that's a blind trust. It's actually the opposite of blind trust, but that's what they were going to do. But now it turns out in their spare time, they're also going to run a new foundation. They both, Eric's got a foundation, Dad's got a foundation. They got plenty of things going on, but they're going to have a new one, and they're going to do it in their spare time while they're not running the global empire, whatever. They're going to collect $500,000 to $1 million emoluments of their own. And the creative part, as I said, is they're getting paid to go on vacation. Those guys, this is a brilliant thing. I've said this is something I want to do, honestly. And some people are really good at it. You find, how they always say, do what you love, right? Well, one of the ways you can do what you love, one of the ways, of course, is be born to a ostensible, or someone who claims to be a billionaire, who is at least moving cash around quickly enough so that it looks like you're a billionaire, and you get to live like you're a billionaire even if you're just hustling the whole time. So that's one way to get to do what you love. Another way, though, if you have to maintain the hustle in order to maintain that lifestyle, is to figure out a way. Well, one, think of what you love. We love hunting and fishing. So how about if, now that our dad is president, we start a quote-unquote foundation to help quote-unquote charities, and the deal is you pay us to go on hunting and fishing vacations. Granted, you get to go along, and we don't know who you are, and, that could be a real downer. But I get to hunt and fish, and I get $1 million. Of course, I have to put it in a foundation, and occasionally I make some, wave my hands and say, it went to a charity. And maybe it did, maybe it didn't. Maybe it went in a way that actually inures to my benefit as much, if not more, than the cash inures to the benefit of the charity that got it, if one gets it. But basically what they've done is they've built a way to have people who want to bribe their dad pay to send them on vacations all the time. And in addition, it's not a bad deal for the family, of course, because when Eric or Don or whoever's free to take yet another vacation, hunting or fishing with somebody, when they decide they're going to go, they hop on one of the family planes, but it's not, I own a plane, so I paid to put some gas in it and we're going to fly. Instead, I have to talk to DJT Air and book the flight. And although and then DJT bills us for the flight, I'll pay for it, quote unquote pay. I'll pay DJT out of what? Out of the foundation. The opening day foundation will pay DJT Air for the tickets on the plane, for me and for my gun, or for whoever I'm taking with me. And of course, the person who's bidding on the vacation will also pay money, and we'll use some of that money to probably cover their ticket too. But now, of course, money that you've donated to or you've given over to the opening day foundation. And by the way, are they going to operate like forever after too? That's just called opening day because it's about the day after the inauguration. But what about, are they just going to keep selling hunting trips? Those aren't opening day, but whatever. Anyway, maybe opening day like opening day of hunting season. Every day is opening day if you go to a private game ranch like they have in Texas, which, by the way, is where this charity thing is, or the foundation is based. But okay. It's in Dallas, and they don't have game ranches inside Dallas, so whatever. Anyway, so you've given money to the foundation, so the Trump boys say, that's not bribing my dad or me. It's going to a foundation, and it's a nonprofit, and we give that money to charity. But one of the things that we're going to do with it is pay DJT Air for extraordinarily expensive private air travel tickets. DJT Air, of course, is a private company owned and controlled by Donald Trump. And guess what? Poof! Your donation to the nonprofit Opening Day Foundation has just been converted into the private cash reserve of Donald J. Trump, which he likes to give out to his children as well. So everybody wins. Next, of course, I got to fly to wherever we're going hunting with whatever idiot paid the money to go and do this stuff, and whoever else I want to bring along. But since I'm going and I'm a Trump son, I also, of course, need to bring with me my, Secret Service contingent. We already went over this, right? A couple of episodes ago, a few weeks ago, we talked about the fact that every time a Trump family member now takes a vacation or travels anywhere, especially on one of their private planes, they will need to take the Secret Service with them. I don't know how many agents go with a Trump son, but even if it's just one, the story, of course, is the Secret Service, the government agency, will have to buy one of those super expensive plane tickets from DJT Air as well. So every time somebody pays a Trump boy $1 million to go hunting, which he loves, right? I'll buy you a $1 million, not even a $1 million hunting vacation. I'll buy you a hunting vacation plus put $1 million basically in your bank account, and you will use DJT Air and a few other mechanisms, and of course the Opening Day Foundation, to launder it into your own cash money that you can stick in your own private pocket. P.S. I'll tell you what I want your dad to do, and you'll tell your dad, and if you time it right, like he's on his way to the decision-making desk, then you get what you want. So, well played, and, good imagination, good creativity to find a way to get other people to pay for the stuff you want to do, like take vacations. Is it a big drag? Do the billionaire boys fret that, well, it's really more like work because I have to go hunting with some random slob who wants to bribe my dad, and he could be a real jerk, and I'd have to go hunting with him, and that would really suck. It's more fun, I'm sure, to just go where you want to go with people you want to go with, but it is something, a part of the lifestyle that the Trump boys are used to. Remember, it was a small thing by itself, but we remember what we reported a few weeks ago that when they needed engagement rings for their fiancés, they were willing to forego the idea of, well, I'll shop for a ring that I think that you will personally appreciate or that is designed to your specifications, and I will pay for it out of my own pocket and buy it and give it to you as a gift, and instead take freebie rings in exchange for product placement rights on The Apprentice. Right? You remember that? Not only did Donald do it, but one or two of the Trump boys did something similar as well. They agreed to put Graf Jewelers product on The Apprentice and to give it a prominent placement. And in exchange, they got free rings, but they had to go to the Short Hills Mall in Short Hills, New Jersey, and propose to their fiancés in front of the cameras in the middle of the mall in order to get that free ring. Now, lots of people might very well decide to do something like that, but usually it's because they're not supposedly billionaires who are supposed to be able to afford rings like that out of their pocket change. These guys are cheapskates, chiselers, and grifters through and through, and it should surprise no one that when it came time to design a bribery scheme for Dad, it would involve someone else paying for the expenses of their taking vacations, and also a way to convert charity money and government money into private money to boot. They are geniuses at that. All right, time to welcome Joan McCarter to the show for our Wednesday segment. Good morning, Joan. How you doing?
Good morning. I'd have to say at the outset, this has to be a quick one. We're very short-staffed.
Oh,
this holiday week.
Yeah, I can imagine that that's the case. Right. Well, maybe. You need to go out and get more people who want emoluments, and
and in fact, that's the story I'm right in the middle of writing up.
I imagined it would be. I don't see how it could be anything else. So let's get right to it then, so that you can tell everybody else the same story later.
I love that they're saying ethically they can do a half-blind trust.
Oh.
What does half-blind mean?
I don't know. What does half-assed mean?
Like you still have one eye partly open and you can still kind of see that's not blind.
There's obviously no such thing, but I haven't heard that. Okay. What?
Yes. Politico reports.
Okay.
And a little bit more to get into with Politico in a little bit, but aides responsible for setting up ethics firewalls have held discussions with officials at the Office of Government Ethics about establishing what's known as a discretionary trust.
Mm-hmm.
So Trump and his family members reap some of the legal benefits of a blind trust, but they also can kind of keep their fingers in by knowing how the businesses are doing, and they can continue to make money. So
no.
Yeah.
That's not real.
No, it's not real.
There may be such a thing as a discretionary trust. It's just, it's clearly not a blind trust, and that's what's necessary. But, Yeah, all right. So Republicans
Yeah.
are waiving everything and emoluments, et cetera, and I'm a originalist, a textualist, but not that text. I guess is what it comes down to. I guess along with Newt Gingrich advising them, well, I guess if it really screws up, you can just pardon everybody anyway.
Right.
So that's
It's even George Bush's ethics lawyer, and yes, the Bush administration had ethics lawyers. Whether they paid any attention to them or not, I don't know. But
yeah,
he's saying, well, this is BS. Actually, he says it's highly inappropriate.
yes, it's half BS.
Yeah, to have somebody babysit your conflict-creating assets while you go around and do whatever you want, in my view, that's a violation of at least the spirit of the rules, and that's an abuse. Well, yeah. The question is, of course, who's going to do anything about it?
Nobody, of course, because the first thing we read this morning was everybody in Congress is so afraid of being attacked by Breitbart, now who is now embedded in the White House.
Yep.
So they won't be doing anything because they'll have their skulls split by the advisor to the president. I mean, all he has to do is pick up the phone and say, "This is today's headline at Breitbart. Do it." And it's done.
And here's the other thing about that story that bothered me. I just wrote that up. It's system failure on a couple of levels. The check and balance that Congress is supposed to provide over the executive.
Yes.
But the free press. Here's Politico giving an anonymous Breitbart editor the forum to issue these threats. They quote him. If any politician in either party veers from what the voters clearly voted for in a landslide election, they didn't fact check that, we stand at the ready to call them out on it and hold them accountable, the person said.
Okay.
An editor at Breitbart.
All right.
Using Politico to further threaten members of Congress.
Well, he did say it, and we have to report that. I mean, okay, yeah, but I understand sort of what Politico is doing there. But yeah, they ought to be giving some thought to that. And maybe, I guess if I'm editing Politico, I'm not. But if I was, I'd say, all right, well, they said it, we do have to report it, but we ought to be reporting it. Don't run this story until we get a legal expert in there to say, by the way, that's outrageous and maybe a crime in itself. But,
yeah, they didn't do that.
Okay. Well, they didn't want to hold the story. They need to break those scoops quick.
Yep.
All right. Well, that is rather
not
remarkable.
Encouraging.
No, it's not, and there won't be anybody there willing to check them. We learned that from, of all people, from Mark Sanford.
Yes.
This is what he's afraid of.
Well,
he's not worried about telling his
say,
wife he's
Mark Sanford
hiking.
is a Freedom Caucus member.
Yeah.
It's sort of ironic that Freedom Caucus members are running to Politico to complain about being bullied. I kind of wish that they'd go, interview John Boehner about that one.
Yeah. That would be good. It'd make a much better story. Well,
yes.
he's got to have the freedom to bully them. If he doesn't, then what is the word freedom
why
even
do
mean,
we
man?
even have freedom?
Right. Well, they should take AR-15s with them to work. If they're worried about this stuff. Shoot your constituents if they threaten you. I don't know.
Oh, Barb has a request.
Oh?
Stop talking about naked Trump.
I'm talking about it or showing pictures of it? Yeah, I don't know. I tweeted that picture around, and you would be surprised how many people are like, why is he releasing pictures of himself naked? Well, it's a statue. But it probably looks lovely.
Really want to think about.
For all the people who say they really don't want to think about it, they're thinking very hard that it is him.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's a remarkable likeness. I'll say that, it's a grainy picture too, so we can't really tell. But yeah, that was pretty ugly. But I thought it was understood that was. That's why I was tweeting. I tweeted along with, I'm canceling my season pass to Westworld. It's a fake, guys. That's what the joke was. Not that, hey, look at this picture, and also I don't like Westworld. I can just say that.
You can say that.
But anyway, yeah. Well, the emoluments machine is well oiled. They're doing a great job convincing people that it should be okay for them to do these things that the founders, I never did go back and count, but at least twice and maybe 3 times were like, these emoluments, you really have to pay attention to them.
Right.
They can't
was it Kuwait? Was it the
Yes.
Kuwaiti delegation that changed
one.
their reservations from Four Seasons to Trump Hotel?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the latest.
Yeah.
Others have done the same. Bahrainis as well. And that's curious that monarchies are doing this. But I guess that's the easiest way to switch those things. The constitutional republics are probably having difficulty making it work so quickly, although they certainly have trigger pullers and decision makers along the way. But the Middle Eastern monarchies are switching, and it's largely because probably that one, they do a lot of business with Trump world. Trump builds towers there, not in all of their little emirates, but just 1 or 2 of them. But maybe in the future he will. And of course they all want to have a condo at a Trump tower somewhere as well. So there's a lot of personal business wrapped up in all of that. The kings want condos and penthouses in Trump towers. They're pre-decorated to look just like their palaces, so it's very easy. And they're used to this sort of thing. Oh, I will give royal favor to this person. I want to do something, and when they do it, I'll give them more. That's just business. That's just the way they conduct government in a monarchy, I guess. So the Bahrainis moved their thing. The Kuwaitis have moved their thing as well. I imagine there'll be much more of it in the future.
I imagine so.
And then, of course, the Trump boys and their hunting outings, too. I was just discussing how clever a scheme that is. They've figured out a way to get other people to buy them vacations and also put $1 million in their bank account as well. Plus, they, of course, get to soak the Secret Service one more time when they go on one of these vacations. They all have to pay for tickets on a Trump plane now. So they've got a really good scheme going. And Ivanka got the short end of the stick in all this, unless she really wants to be First Lady, which is possible. I'm sure it's a nice gig.
I have no idea at all what Ivanka wants. But, whatever she wants, she's going to get, I assume.
Yeah, I guess.
One thing that is sort of curious to me, when we saw the coffee date canceled, we saw this hunting trip. Well, I don't know if we saw the hunting trip canceled, but we saw the access to the Donald removed.
Yeah, okay.
From this big fundraising thing. So it's sort of interesting that they are at least pretending to back away.
That's true.
When they do something really egregious that the whole media says, you can't do that.
Yeah, that's true. And I guess we do need to note that apparently the Trump camp has disavowed this the hunting trip scheme. And a few days ago they said, all right, well, we're not going to do the coffee with Ivanka thing either.
Right.
And, I guess they don't have to do that. They can just insist they're going to go forward with it. So I guess that's promising that they do. But, however, then they gave the excuse, for instance, well, we never okayed this hunting trip thing anyway. We have no involvement with it. Some third party said. Despite
the fact that the organizing documents have Donald Jr. and Eric on them.
Yeah, as directors. And I don't know. I mean, I guess anything's possible, but the idea of publicly going out there and saying, I want $1 million and I will hook you up with one of these 2 Trump kids and you'll go hunting. And
originally,
we have a charity
they were giving access to Donald.
Oh, yes, right.
There was going to be a fundraiser at which they could meet or an event.
Opening day.
Essentially, this is a fundraiser. They were going to meet the president.
Yes. And that's all. I don't know. I guess it's still up in the air. But the idea that you would announce
Did you see where the money was supposed to go?
I didn't. It slipped my mind.
They were raising it for conservation.
Oh yes, right.
They didn't have any of the conservation organizations that they were going to give the money to identified.
Right. But it sounds good. It's conservation, of course.
Where have we heard this before?
Yeah. Well, you know how he runs his foundation, and this was not going to be any different. Although Eric Trump's foundation does, in fact, give money to St. Jude, and that's a legit charity. Although I will point out that they usually, they do give like lump sums to the hospitals. Here you go. That's what you're supposed to be doing with charity money. Terrific. But they also do things like, I'm going to raise money for St. Jude's hospitals, and what we're going to do is have a golf outing and silent auction at a Trump golf course, and St. Jude will rent it from us, and then we'll raise some money at the dinner. So the Trumps get paid, which is not the usual arrangement when you're saying, I'm going to donate to charity. I don't walk down the street and say, I'm going to put $1 in the Salvation Army bucket,
provided you give me 10 cents for my effort of putting my $1 in the bucket.
Right. You need to rent the space in front of the supermarket from me.
Right.
Well, the Trumps work differently.
Well, it's going to be job security for David Fahrenholt, so.
That's true.
And probably a few more Pulitzers.
Yes, unless they render him, but.
Whatever. Well, yeah, that's another story I'm going to be. Not necessarily American journalists getting rendered, just reminding folks that 13 journalists have been murdered in Russia since Putin came to power.
Yes. But, Putin's cool.
Putin's cool. He's our buddy now.
Yes. And, of course, the president of the Philippines in the last couple of days has said, oh, by the way, I've personally murdered 3 people.
Personally murdered 3 people.
Like my own hands.
He's going to be one of the first guests to visit Donald Trump's White House.
Yes. I have a feeling that may fall apart in
I have
the
a
same
feeling
way.
it might. One hopes it might.
Yeah, well, crossing your fingers. I don't know. I mean, and there, the Secret Service and or his own personal security force, which is another continuing story, might say to him, I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't point out that this guy's a triple murderer. But, but you've been okay with Don King. So, hey. He's old now. He doesn't murder anymore.
Now the murdering stuff's behind him.
He's a murderer emeritus. In name only, really. Well, I don't know. Someone may bring that up.
Good Lord, 2016.
Yeah, I know. Everybody's excited for it to end. However, there's another year coming.
2017 is coming.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I have there's no reason to believe that it won't be worse. So.
What if 2016 is the last year of civilization?
Well, that would suck. But as
wouldn't it?
Donald Trump's
what a
doctor,
note to go out on.
Yeah. Donald Trump's doctor doesn't care. It's what, hey, if it happens, it happens.
Which actually was probably the most comforting thing I've read yet today.
That's right. If he drops dead, he drops dead. Oh, well. Then,
but is this really who you would choose for your personal physician?
I don't know. It depends if I'm pressed for time, I guess. I want to have a physical, but I really don't want to put the time into it. Why don't you just, give me something that says, maybe you'll die, maybe you won't. That was remarkable as well. So, half-blind trusts, inviting murderers to the White House. Maybe he's healthy, maybe he isn't, and his doctor doesn't care. And even if he isn't healthy, it doesn't matter. If people can keep dying, we'll just get new presidents. Crunch all you want. We'll make more. And
that's pretty much today in Daily Coast News.
Yeah. Well,
there will be more. There will be more. What else can I tease you with?
Oh.
Not a whole lot, because again, there's just 3.5 of us writing today.
Oh.
But we'll talk about Bill O'Reilly being pretty much an out-and-out white supremacist.
That was something. I wonder whether he's like, oh, damn it. Or whether he's
just out there. Just,
Yeah, what is it? He said, in his usual, he does that rant is it at the end of the show that he does it? I don't know.
I don't know.
But he does that,
yeah.
I
don't watch Bill O'Reilly.
Yeah.
So.
But he gives his editorial speech and how did he put it? Do you have it in front of you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I have the tweet.
Okay.
With what he said about abolishing the Electoral College. You know, how they put up his words in the little screen by his head?
Yes.
The left wants power taken away from the white establishment, and they want a profound change in the way America is run.
Yeah. See, now, usually you say...
You don't usually think of the Electoral College as the white establishment, unless you're Bill O'Reilly.
Yeah, I guess. And usually you don't say white. You just say establishment. And everybody, we know what that means. It's white. And occasionally some well-dressed people of other races as well. You don't say white. It's not part of what you're allowed to say out loud, even though everybody understands that you probably believe that. And of course, well, then there was also the other problem of a lot of people saying, I nod in agreement. That is my agenda. I do want power taken away from the white establishment.
Well, it is pretty much a true reading of the history of the Electoral College.
Yes.
On O'Reilly's part.
Mm-hmm. That's not going to be likely what takes power away from the white establishment, but we'll take it.
And of course, because it's me writing primarily, there's going to be a lot on Obamacare today.
Okay.
One of the things that's particularly interesting is that the CBO has come out early, before we really see anything Republicans saying, if you're only giving them minimal insurance, if you're giving them crappy insurance for their tax credits, we're not going to count it as coverage. So when you're saying you're replacing Obamacare, if it's crappy insurance, you're not replacing Obamacare, according to the CBO. So that could help.
Yes. And CBO, too. I mean, you wouldn't ordinarily think that, we know what the C is.
Right.
So why are they doing that? That is a encouraging sign. They're not afraid of Breitbart, I guess.
I guess they're not.
Well, that's largely because, there's no pressure point. Usually, I'm sure they'll try and invent one. They'll now be publishing the home addresses of people who work for the CBO.
Probably. And it's entirely likely that the two staffers who wrote the blog post outlining all of this are deciding that they're retiring.
That could be.
Or moving on to spend more time with their families or other jobs early in the year. But for now, the CBO is saying, no. For the purposes of giving people tax credits for health insurance, this doesn't count.
Well, that's good. That's remarkably honest of them, and I hope it lasts.
I hope so, too. And now I have to go write these things up because Barb is freaking out.
Well, you threaten her with more of my pictures and see if that works. I'm just going to tweet it nonstop.
Trump if you don't get to stay on the
I'm going
line.
to be DMing it to her, and I'm going to magnify it and all kinds of things. And it's going to need some magnification, from what I understand. He's got small hands.
That's perfectly normal-sized hands.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. Okay. Well, it's Skeleton Crew, and we all, I guess I'll have to see if I can't scrounge something together to add to the evergreen queue.
We would love that. If you would like to queue up something more talking about getting Merrick Garland on the Supreme Court, that would be lovely, too.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see what we can do about that as well. I know, lots of pushback on that from lots of sides. But, and the odds have never been good with, the folks who are in Congress, generally speaking, cautious people. And it's definitely not an Obama-style move.
No, it's not. But hopefully these people have been paying attention to what happened in North Carolina last week.
I mean...
Because you pretty much need a Supreme Court when this kind of stuff is happening.
Yeah. And it won't be there for you if you just leave it the way it is. Yes, there's all sorts of reaction it can provoke, but, well, that stuff's coming down the pipe anyway, and
Right.
you can either have somebody there who can at least be a voice in the chaos, or you can just be overwhelmed later. So, all right, we'll see what we can add to that, and then check in with you again when the calendar turns over. Yeah. Oh, 2 weeks. Okay.
Yes.
All right. We can hold out that long. We can always just, read the site too. But
Yeah.
send me little notes about what we should be talking about. So I take a week off.
Well, I'm on vacation
Yeah.
next week.
Okay.
So.
Well, you don't have to send it while you're on vacation.
Okay.
But we'll pay attention to what gets churned out today by the skeleton crew and liberally sprinkle it throughout next week's coverage. Then enjoy your vacation.
I will.
And
happy holidays to you.
Thank you.
Happy Hanukkah.
Thanks very much. War on anything else? What else have we got? It's been a war on Hanukkah up until
I have
you
my
just said
Christmas
that.
tree. I'm doing Christmas.
Yes.
Merry Christmas.
Very good. Then Merry Christmas. You didn't steal your tree like Donald Trump did in Mobile, right?
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
Of course.
I'm
only disappointed that they didn't beat up a child and take a tree from him.
Yeah.
That was I thought the most. I think the guy was trying to sort of prove his alt-right cred. Like you have to do something appalling in order to be cool in those circles. So stealing a tree,
Cutting down the tree from the city park.
Yeah, the Public Safety Memorial Park, by the way.
Oh, Lord.
So like
For Donald Trump.
Fallen police officers, chop their damn tree down.
Merry effing Christmas.
Right. Evergreen lives matter. Okay.
Stealing your trees.
Yeah. That's pretty gross. So, all right, slip that into a story there, and see if you can't get a licensed photo of that spray painting of the statue for us to use.
I'll do my best.
And I'll email it to Barb 100 times.
Okay.
All right. Thanks very much. Enjoy
You are
your
most
break.
welcome.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and all other things that you might
There's
be
a
doing in
birthday
between.
for me in there,
Oh,
too.
well,
But we
happy
don't talk
birthday
about
then,
that so
too.
much.
Yeah. You and Jesus. So good.
Jesus.
It's a party. It's all right. Thanks very much for stopping
All
by.
right, Kagro.
Get back to work, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Alrighty, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. All right. Well, serious business over there. At the front page of Daily Kos, where we've been hearing from and delaying the work of Joan McCarter, senior political writer. And all because we stole an extra 5 minutes. All because Barb is afraid to have me email her pictures of a fake naked Donald Trump. Where is our backbone? We're never going to... How are we going to defeat ISIS if we can't stomach the pictures of fake naked Donald Trump? I ask you. This is a genuine and legitimate rhetorical device from now on. Okay. So, also thanks to Joan for helping wrap up one of the other loose ends on the emoluments story, in that, yes, the Trump camp is, in fact, shying away from this stuff. That does have to be noted. So I don't know whether it actually counts as shame, but I'm glad to hear that it happened, even though I really only think they're going to try to be sneakier about it. Although maybe they won't even be sneaky. They'll just say, we're not doing that. And then when that story is published, they'll go and do it. This is what I really think probably is the smarter play from their perspective. This is the kind of people they are. Announce that you're doing it. Get the people interested in bribing the Trump family interested in doing this, right? Then the press finds out. Then you distance yourself from it, deny it as implausible as it is. You say, we're not doing that. We're canceling it as well. Story gets printed that they're canceling it. Then you go and do it. Then somebody says, hey, you said you were canceling it. And then you did it. And then you just say, no, we didn't do it. We announced that we were canceling it. Yeah, but I actually saw you go ahead and do it. Fake news, everybody. They're faking it. It's a made-up story. Look, we said right here, we're not doing it. Can't you read? Yeah, but here's pictures of you doing it. Photoshopped, fake story. Oh, my God, it's a conspiracy. And then we'll all be left shaking our heads and saying, how the hell did this happen? I'd try it if I were them, just to see if you could get away with it. And then if you don't, you take Gingrich's advice. Pardon yourself, and everybody goes, emoluments, something. Maybe it's a thing, maybe it's not. It is interesting, for, like we said, for strict textualists or for people who, like yesterday we found out, were positive that the emoluments clause was an absolute disqualifier prior to the fact of assuming office. When it was Hillary Clinton, they now think, not so much with the emoluments after all, now that it's Donald Trump. Okay, so switching gears, a couple of other items to discuss. One, I just wanted to make mention of this because it was, well, one, it's a story we do pay some attention to, and two, we can get Greg perhaps to comment on it a little bit tomorrow, and three, because Judy Vincent sent it to us, along with a couple of other people, by the way, noting for us how time works in Hawaii. Generally speaking, 5 hours behind Eastern Standard Time, if you were interested and didn't look it up for yourself. 6 hours behind during the summer because they don't do daylight savings time because they got enough daylight there in Hawaii. They save it up in volcanoes, apparently. So anyway, she wanted us to know, because she's a doctor too, and many of you have mentioned this as well, and I haven't been able to fit it into the show because I keep talking about how things come to. Oh, yes, right, the story. Mumps cases. Mumps cases are the highest they've been in 10 years. Why? Anti-vaxxers, of course, telling people don't vaccinate your kids against the normal childhood illnesses that have been so effective in eradicating these diseases. Mumps is back. Old school. Remember, like the Trumps want it, the way it used to be. Back in the old days, that guy would have had mumps, and he wouldn't have been here to protest my rally. I mean, I'll include the article because it's sort of outside our normal purview, but we do definitely talk about anti-vaxxers and that aspect of medicine from time to time. And in case you were wondering, sure, measles are coming back, but what about mumps? The answer is mumps is in on it too. It's a conspiracy. And we'll let you read about the conspiracy. Another item that I want to shoehorn in to a full day's work here. A gun fail item. I mentioned to you about the holiday wrapped gun, but I wanted to do a follow-up on a story I mentioned a couple of weeks ago. I'm pretty sure we must have discussed it because it was, I thought, under-discussed in general, and it was the story of the school resource officer in Bay City, Michigan, who had accidentally fired his service weapon in school, and then we found out a couple days after that the bullet had passed through a classroom wall and hit a teacher in the middle of teaching class. Grazed her, thankfully, so that it wasn't a serious injury or death, but shot her in the neck through the wall from the other, who knows what he was even doing, messing around with his gun, but I'm pretty sure I must have made mention of this to you at some point. Anyway, the inquiry continues, and according to, and this is an Associated Press piece here running, I have it in the Huron Daily Tribune, so it's not getting widespread coverage, but as it turns out, the local prosecutor who's handling the case, Tuscola County, if I'm pronouncing it right, prosecutor's office, is still looking at this thing. This is unbelievable. Not only did we find out only a couple days later, oh, by the way, a teacher was hit in the neck, but check out, this is a police officer, supposedly the most responsible of gun owners in the world, right? Veteran police officer tried to hide the fact that his weapon discharged in a Bay City school and sent the bullet through a wall that grazed the teacher, according to reports obtained Monday by a newspaper, I am told. Police documents and video obtained by the Bay City Times through a public records request show Bay County's Sheriff's Deputy Adam Brown fired a pistol last month in Bay City Western High School's robotics classroom. He probably put it in a robot hand. That's what happened. While testing the trigger pull with a force machine. He did. He put it in a robot's hands. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. I didn't even read that part of this. What I read was Brown, who was the school's resource officer at the time, had 2 guns, and the one that discharged was a backup that he was authorized to carry. So he gave that one, no harm giving that one to a robot. Reports said the bullet passed through drywall into a classroom occupied by a teacher and roughly 30 students. The bullet ricocheted off the ceiling and a wall and struck the teacher in the neck. The teacher had a small scratch and went to pick up the fired bullet, but dropped it because it was hot. That's the way bullets are. Brown, this is the part that caught me. Brown didn't initially confess to staff members, leading officials to boost security measures while they tried to figure out what happened. Reports say a staff member gave Brown the spent bullet in order to protect it. Guess what Brown did with it? Brown left the school building, placing the fired gun in his personal vehicle, and threw the fired bullet into the school lawn in an attempt to thwart the investigation. The report added that in a conversation with another officer, Brown was extremely emotional and said it was a total accident. He took his gun out. He went to the robotics lab. He put the gun in a, what did they call it? A force machine? I don't even know exactly what that describes. Just to see if it could shoot the gun. And then it did, and then he hides the bullet and he throws it and he hides the gun. Can you imagine what's going on here? Oh my God. This is unbelievable. But, I gotta tell you, it's just one of those responsible gun owners who just becomes not a responsible gun owner when the mood strikes. Gee whiz. Wow. So I thought that was a rather remarkable story. I'll share it with you, and you can take a look at it on your own time. I skipped right over that part that I put it in a machine to see if a robot could pull the trigger on it. Yeah, I think it can, and it's going to shoot just the same. Well, I don't know. The robot has no agency, you see. So at any rate, it wouldn't be a crime. Anyway, total accident. All I did was give it to a robot. Skynet doesn't even have to invent itself, ladies and gentlemen. The cops will take care of it. Oh, man. Unbelievable. So I'm glad to have the time to squeeze that in. What about the rest of the programming day here on Netroots Radio? Well, I'll tell you the part I'm responsible for telling you, which is what's coming up next on Netroots Radio, the after show. And I'm responsible for rolling the outro music, too, and I've neglected to do that to date. What's up today? On Wednesday's Child is Full of Whoa Wednesday on the after show, I will tell you, a former covert CIA agent explains how Trump's scorn will cripple the intelligence community and endanger foreign assets. How about this one? A fake news story inspires Trump supporters to commit violence against Michigan Muslims. Don't worry, the cops will help you there in Michigan. And a private prison CEO salivates over the profits to be made by forced labor camps building infrastructure under Trump. Remember when I fantasized that story for you? I guess it caught on. I'll have to take a peek and see what they're talking about over there. Well, work will set you free, and it's all about freedom. On the last half, we report that this time it's the State Department's civil servants worried about a purge, as the Trump transition demands all information on all employees involved in climate spending. Once again, and then they'll disavow that one too, I'm sure. Meanwhile, the one over at the Energy Department is no doubt pressing forward. And the UN pushes for a murder probe into Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte. So, I guess he's on the hook for that one too. All of that, plus the Connect, Unite, Act, Daily Kos Community Calendar, and more.
From Daily Kos Radio.
Coming up next.
On netrootsradio.com.
On the After Show.
You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show.
With David Waldman.
Thank you very much for listening. Let me remind you all as well, we're getting some nice responses on our Patreon fundraising account. Thanks very much to all of those who have joined in recent days. I encourage the rest of you to help do the same. Let's make 2017 a banner year for, that and fundraising and everything else. I'll talk to you tomorrow.